Hello and welcome everybody to part 4, our final part. It's a cycle of our of our vlog series on getting excited about CX and the possibilities that are out there, and awakening our own mentality towards the transformation that is occurring. This last one is going to be on moments of truth and simplification. Themes that have definitely been present for some time that we've been poking at, but maybe not fully grasping. And me and Baker are excited to unlock some of that power today. Baker, take us away, my friend. Hello.
Hey, Nate, thanks for having me back. So listen, we've covered a lot of ground here. And I think part of the excitement is, we're starting to really see that, there's a changing tone in the attitudes of business leaders about the relative importance of customer experience, right? As a driver of revenue, loyalty, retention, how that's changed the investment perspective for contact center leaders, because it's not just about keeping the cost as low as possible anymore, right? And so we're seeing it move from CX being this sort of cost of doing business to becoming this cultural extension of the brand, right? And it's creating deeper, more personal relationships with customers. It's becoming a core differentiator, a competitive advantage for the brands that get it right. But businesses are still in this to make money, right? And so I know you have some really interesting thoughts on what you call moments of truth. What I'd love to talk about today is just how do we think about balancing the need to simplify, reduce friction, deliver better customer experience while still delivering on the bottom line for the business?
For sure. There's a lot of psychology in this as we think about moments of truth and the impacts that they have in this larger customer journey. There are times where something isn't really going to surface in somebody's mind in terms of being a critical part of the experience. And sadly, we oftentimes invest a tremendous amount of time and energy into those areas, being ignorant to that fact that that's not ultimately causing much in the area of loyalty or enhancing the perception that the customer has of us. Then there's something else that we've just kind of dismissed or tossed out there half-baked. And ultimately, that is a moment of truth where the customer is generating a strong perception that they have. There's the peak end rule. That would be the most classic and iconic example of this, where somebody's going to get an opinion of you stuck in their head right at that first critical interaction point. And they're going to hold on to that maybe even longer than they should. And then also at the very end of the journey, when you're walking out of Disney World, when you're taking that last sip of Starbucks, whatever that is, that last sensation will define the overall experience that you had quite a bit. So in many cases, we want to focus on that first moment and that last moment as being moments of truth. But certainly there are others sprinkled in as well, where they might interrupt, as Jonathan Shore, our CEO, would say, interrupt the customer flow. If they're happily going through an experience that we've designed where we're maximizing the value to them inside of our partnership, and then something is likely to knock them off course into this parallel universe in which the customer does not flow and loyalty is not established. We want to prevent those tenaciously to keep them inside of that zone of customer flow where we can enhance that experience and ultimately understand it. So moments of truth are critical here. I mean, what are you thinking on it, Baker?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. You're talking about moments of truth in the customer experience, right? These inflection points that either make or break that journey.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think that's essential to delivering customer experience. I also think for contact center leaders who are very often in the position of having to prove their worth, the moment of truth comes at the end of the quarter or the end of the year when they pull up their dashboard. Ooh. And, I guess, part of my question for you is when Officium looks at contact center metrics in this evolving landscape, so many of the metrics are carryovers from the cost center days.
Yeah.
Right. And so much of customer experience feels subjective or squishy.
Yeah.
How start to change the metrics landscape for our contact center leaders such that they can quantify and prove the value of customer experience to the bottom line?
No doubt. I mean, customer lifetime value is a phenomenal metric. And when you can correlate that into actual customer behaviors, it's customer behaviors that we want to be able to measure. If they had a great service interaction and they represented that in some way, whether that's customer satisfaction or NPS, whatever makes most sense for your product, your service, and the demographic that you're serving, whatever way that somebody can represent, yes, this was a great service experience. And then being able to see the behaviors that follow and also the behaviors that follow a poor service experience and be able to contrast those. There's a tremendous amount of power that is there. The customer effort score to me is brilliant, Baker, because I mean, it's asking the right question at the right time. If we're looking at the customer service touch point inside of a journey, there's an issue. Did you resolve my issue quickly and easily? 98% of the time, that is what matters. It's an intelligent question, and it's going to have correlation to loyalty. We can see the behaviors that represents if it was a low effort experience for them to get back on track and inside of customer flow. So, I mean, it's just such a powerful question. A lot of times we're asking very irrelevant questions at the wrong time. But you can even bring that concept of effort into areas beyond the customer service touch point with an ease of business type of question. Is it easy to do business with UJET? And you can ask that at just about any point in the journey and really be able to show where the friction points are. Identify those friction points that put you at risk with this relationship and allow you to have the insights to mitigate those friction points as effectively as possible.
So I love that. It's interesting. I hear a lot of debate on NPS these days because the concept is that it's somewhat hypothetical. It's, would you refer us? It's not, have you referred us, right? And then we also see that people responding to surveys don't always respond in the same way that they behave. We see that with exit polling, right? In the real world.
No doubt.
Customer effort scores, really interesting when we start to look at identifying specific friction points throughout the journey.
Yeah.
I guess this is my question. How do we deal with recidivism rates and how do we look at the outlier challenge, right? We know who's most likely to respond to those surveys are the folks who are really angry or really happy. What can we do to get a really good, well-rounded baseline of how well we're doing on that front?
Yeah, I mean, let me back the train up a little bit to that NPS insight that you provided there, Baker. I mean, we sadly, in many cases, have ruined that NPS question. Because if you look at the wording around that of would you refer a friend or family member to use this product or service, people are in fear that if they say yes, then they're going to get prompted immediately to go and actually do that. And they don't want to have to do that right now. Maybe they didn't have that compelling of an experience. Maybe they're about to go do something else and they don't want to have to spend 5 or 6 minutes writing up a testimonial about your product or service. So they're just going to skip the question or maybe rank it lower so as not to be at risk of receiving that follow-up question of, okay, well, here it is, the link to go ahead and recommend us to your friends and family, just like you said you would in that NPS question. So, I mean, that's one tangible way that in some aspects, the question has kind of lost relevance. I mean, the question is old enough to have its own driver's license at this point. There's a lot of brilliance in the larger NPS system. But that question, when put in isolation alone, can be very, very dangerous. So if we look at that question or the customer effort score or CSAT or whatever question we're asking, how do we avoid what you're describing, Baker, of this phenomenon around only getting responses from those that are super pissed off and those that are extremely happy? And the answer to that is to make it incredibly easy for them to give you feedback. It should happen at the most convenient and relevant moment possible and in the most convenient and relevant way. And generally speaking, that is going to be on a mobile device and it's going to be a text message in which somebody can very quickly and easily just confirm or otherwise express their thoughts and opinions about an experience that they just had. That's going to be the best way to collect that feedback. The other best way is to just use what you've already seen about the interaction to form your own opinions about it and to use machine learning and automation and automated customer sentiment score to look at that customer interaction or their behaviors and to be able to not have to ask that question about how was your experience because we already know, because we saw the whole thing. And we have the ability to look at that intelligently and to know if it was good for you or not.
So if we're going to talk about the bottom line, I have to ask you about what I think is another controversial metric.
Sure.
Average handle time.
Okay.
Right? We've talked about the fact that most voice interactions at this point are moving towards being escalations or more complex issues. It seems to me that average handle time would be an incentive for agents to rush customers off the phone and not provide the best possible experience. Is there still a place for it in the contact center today?
Absolutely. And it's used to know where you have a high friction experience that is happening. Average handle time should never be used as a punitive metric for an agent. That's not what you're seeing there. What you're seeing is that this is taking a tremendous amount of time for both the customer and the agent to find a satisfactory resolution. Something's really broken here in this process. And that call tag, that category that has a high average handle time is a tremendous opportunity for you to bring lean thinking into your CX design to ultimately reduce and improve that part of the experience. That's how we use average handle time. Almost never would we be using that to put a lens on a specific agent because we're so far past that. If the agent's doing a great job on that customer interaction and it takes them another 20 seconds than their peers, I am very okay with that because I mean the numbers are just going to prove it out every time. You keep the people that are keeping your customers happy. If it takes them a little bit longer to do that, that is okay. If it's taking a grievous amount longer, then that's a quality, that's a coaching opportunity that will be very clear and obvious whether you're measuring average handle time or not. But I mean, those are my thoughts on the number.
Man, we've covered a lot of ground in these 4 episodes, and I think it's been like a really interesting conversation. It's bringing up a lot more questions for me. So maybe we can get a second series here sometime soon.
Indeed. Well, Baker, this has been a great pleasure. You're a wise guy. It's been fun getting to know you and learning from you in this series. And I hope some others out there have gotten some benefit as well. So definitely let us know. Make a comment, ask a question. We would love to be a resource for you. So thank you so much again on behalf of Officium and UJET, and we will catch you all later.
Thanks, guys.